go play the cash flow game. The cash flow quadrant, the game that Robert Kiyosaki came up with, like, it's right there. It's in the tax code. It'll tell you, like, start going to some of this stuff, educate yourself. You can play that game and you can do incredibly well if you play that game well. Or you can just play the game of, like, put your head down and hope the government gives you a lot and just make enough and build a nest egg and then retire when you're 65. You can play that game.
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hennche. Welcome back to The Path to Wealth. I'm your host, Hennche, and today we're joined by Yoder, a former physical therapist turned real estate enthusiast. Lee, founder of Threefold Real Estate Investing, focuses on syndicating large apartment buildings, committed to leveraging his talents for abundant opportunities. Lee forges connections with real estate professionals, attracting partners to join Threefold. Beyond real estate, Lee residing in Ohio with his wife and 2 children, enjoying family time. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Thank you, Hannes. It's great to be here.
And sorry for the voice, man. I'm about to lose it. So you have to talk a little bit more than me today.
Yep. All right, I can do that.
So let's get started. Where did your money mindset come from? Is this something you inherited from your family or something you nurtured over time? What was your aha moment like in your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. For some reason, Hannes, I've always been fascinated with building wealth. Like, even when I was young and I didn't really know what that meant and, like, had no idea what I was going to do with it. And I still, like, want to build wealth far more than I know what I'm going to do with it. But I always, I did work as a kid and, like, was just always saving my money, just fascinated with, like, being able to save my money and build wealth and see my bank account go up. And I don't think anybody taught me that. I think it was just in me. I like math. I'm competitive. I like sports, and, like, just building wealth was kind of just like a scoreboard to me, like just playing this game where, like, I just wanted to score more points type thing. It's kind of weird, I guess, but I've just always had that. I don't think it was taught to me or anything like that. And so just as I've grown, that's just kind of evolved, as I learn more and those numbers actually meant more. And but I've still kind of continue with that. I'm fascinated with being able to build wealth. And then, what I like about syndicating apartments is I get to help other people do that. And it can be life-changing, obviously.
Yeah. So what do you think money meant to you back then? I actually like it the way you put it, that it's a scoreboard, because I think that's a healthy relationship with money. I know some people get like it's money, it's serious, and it's not the game. And
yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, we should also not take it too serious. So I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. But how did you feel about that? Why did you feel like it's gamified? What is the meaning of wealth and money for you?
For me, ultimately, I'm a believer, a Christ follower that believes that, it's all God's, and he's, we're called to be good stewards of whatever he blesses us with. So that's the foundation for me. So, what it really means to me is this, anything that God blesses me and my family with, we're supposed to be good stewards of that and use that to further his kingdom, bless others, things like that. And I think, for me, like, even as a kid, I was raised in the church and I understood that. So it was always like just opportunity, like the more, money that went into my bank account, hey, there's endless possibilities. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I could buy some stuff. I could bless others with it. I could, travel with it. And I think it's just kind of continued where I still feel that way, that, yeah, certainly a big chunk of it has to be used just to live, but I'm excited about what's beyond that. And, there's endless possibilities, I guess. And I think that's what's exciting about it to me, that, like, it's not capped. You can just kind of keep playing this game forever, and it's limitless. And the more points you score and you gain more wealth, then you just have freedom for yourself, but you can also do a lot for others as well. So that's just always been exciting to me, and I think I continue to look at it very similarly today.
I think this is the best metric to look at money. It's like, how much can I scale service? And that's kind of what I'm reading between the lines when you say that. It's like, okay, obviously you can upgrade lifestyle, and that's in itself is an infinite game. Mm-hmm. What I find a lot more interesting is to, like, how can I play this game and leverage it in a way to serve more people. And I think that's really what I'm hearing from you here.
Yeah.
What are some of the causes that you like to contribute and support to?
Yeah, good question. We're still very much in startup mode. So I definitely have bigger dreams than what we've been able to do so far. Thus far, Hannes, what my wife and I have really focused in on mostly is just serving our residents, which is really fun. And it's something we can involve our kids in. So, we're just picking a few times throughout the year. We're picking a different property here and there where we've done some cookouts and things like that and had food trucks and done some fun things like that. But then also, for Christmas, we put together some just little gift packages that we're going to hang on the doorknobs of our 96 unit that we just took over with a note in it. And we're not spending a lot of money on these, honestly. We haven't made it yet, where there's a bunch there. I have much bigger dreams of what we could do. But, for now, it's just kind of like a gift and a note that says, we're thinking about you, like someone's thinking about you. And we took the time to put this together and try to bless you around the holidays. And so hoping that our residents feel seen and maybe even loved by someone just to get this note and this, kind of little gift is what we've done so far.
I think that's actually pretty powerful to try to make somebody feel seen.
Yeah.
Like, I think every human being wants to be seen and heard, and having the ability to give that to tenants. And, we all invest in working class multifamily properties to some degree. And I think it's a part of society that sometimes feels forgotten too, where people don't feel like they necessarily get the attention or the time of the day of other people. So I think that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
So tell me a little bit about that property. What was the process like for you to, source it, acquire it? What were the challenges that you faced when you were going after that deal? Yeah,
the one that we just closed a little bit ago. Yeah. So it came to us. It's kind of an interesting story because we bought another property, a 64 unit, about 6 months ago. The guy that we bought that from, he's an older gentleman. This was his last property that he sold off to us. An older broker that he's known, for decades and done a bunch of deals with, brought him another deal. And he said, I'm too old. I shouldn't be doing it anymore. Like, I just sold my last one. I shouldn't be buying anymore. He went and looked at it, got kind of excited about it, but maybe his wife talked him out of it. And he's like, I said, I'm retired. I'm going to be retired. I sold my last property. I'm done. So he called me and he's like, Lee, you just bought mine. This one looks pretty good. You should go buy this one too. He's like, I'm too old. I'm getting out of the game. I sold you my last one. You go buy this. So he connected me with the broker, and I looked at it and I said, this actually looks like, what we would like. Started talking about broker, started looking at the property, and really liked it. And it was a little bit outside of our territory, but I have a really good relationship with some guys in that area. It's just about 2 hours from us, so it's not, real far, but so far we've bought just within an hour radius around us. But this one's about 2 hours away. But I know some guys up there, and they actually partnered with us on it. And then this one was unique, honest, and we can get into whatever you want to. But we actually did seller financing on this one, and did like kind of like a land contract deal. So it was kind of unique that way. But that's how we found it and kind of put it together. I actually love that, and I think if you stay in touch with him, he will love to mentor you. Yeah, because he wants to play the game. Yeah, but he doesn't want to be fully involved. Right. So he'll be a good guy to keep around. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Yeah. Like, and occasionally, he'll shoot you a deal. He's like, hey, Lee, I think you have to take a look at this. Yeah. I think this is a incredibly valuable relationship. I hope so, and I kind of think so too. I think you're right, Hannes. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the deal. You were able to partner with other people to take it down, which is common practice. That's how we like to play the game. We bring in the right partners. How did you identify those partners? Yeah, I met these guys like 2.5 years ago. It's 4 guys, just live up in this area. They're realtors. One's a broker. They buy investment property, but they've just bought a bunch of small stuff so far, and they've been wanting to get into the bigger stuff. They've gone to a couple of the conferences. They've gone out to the Best Ever conference by Joe Fairless last couple of years, and they were I hadn't been to it, and they were telling me, a year and a half ago, they're like, you got it, you should go to this conference. We're going. You should go with us. It was their second year going, so I did end up going and actually roomed with them So got to know them even better by rooming with them. And so we've just developed this relationship over 2.5 years. We'll meet for lunch, a couple times a year, and just kind of catching up. And they've just said, man, we want to get into this stuff, but it'd be great to be able to partner with you because, you've done it a few times, and I guess we've done it like 6 or 8 times now. So you know what you're doing. So it'd be great to partner with you. So you kind of teach us the ropes on our first one. So when I found this and it happened to be in their town, where they live and work and invest, I'm like, this just seems like God has put this out there. Like, come on, you met these guys and this is the opportunity to do it. So I just figured I might as well reach out to them and see what they think about it. And if anything, they could just tell me, like, is this a good area? I mean, they just, again, they own, they invest, they work in the area. So like, hey guys, is this a good area? Is it a good property? And they loved it. And they're like, man, we would love to partner with you on this. So it just worked out really well. And I've been developing this relationship with them for, over 2 years. So it just seemed like the right time for sure.
So who did due diligence? Were you all involved very much? Because you did mention that this was their first big deal.
Yeah.
How did you go about actually closing it, and who took the lead on the communication?
Yeah, it was really, we did everything. So we almost acted like we were doing it ourselves, but just keeping them involved every step of the way. Like, just really letting them see everything, CCing them on the emails, involving them in everything. And then, yeah, they came out and helped us. I mean, it's 96 units, we did it in one day. And, two of the 4 guys were able to show up. And then me and my partner, my wife was there, and our professional, inspector. And so, we were able to like walk 4 units at once. So we could knock out, there's actually 24 4-unit buildings. So we were able to knock out a building at a time. And so they were involved and helpful, but, like putting the insurance together, getting the debt, like I did all that, but I just involved them in everything, letting them know what was going on. But yeah, they would be out at the property, just anxious to help in any way they could. And then, they were a big help on raising capital. They're, since they're in that area, of course, their investors are probably even a little more excited than my investors, because most people, like, if they can invest close to home, it feels fun that, like, oh yeah, I know that property, or they could just at least drive by it. So their investors were very excited about investing. So they, of course, helped in that part as well.
Yeah, there's something about tangibility,
Yeah.
One of the things is, so we've been looking at raising overseas capital in Europe. And one of the things that I keep having is that people, to some degree, they like to have it in their backyard, and they're almost willing to take a worse overall return if it's more tangible for them. Like, even if you logically can explain it in so many ways why it would be more attractive, they'll go for something that's slightly discounted if it's closer to them. If, like you said, it's fun for them to drive by the building and be like, I'm invested.
Yeah. And I think they just think it's safer because they know it. Whatever it just feels safer. So I think there's a big, I mean, you can imagine, like, if you're going to invest across an ocean, it's like, man, a lot that's really far away from me. And of course it's out of their control no matter what, but it just maybe feels like they have more control, or they just know it and just feels more comfortable if it's local.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of intangible things that start happening. So for one, I mean, the culture is literally different. The law is different. So once you cross the ocean, it's like completely untangible. And then there's this, like, forget about touching it. You can't even touch it from a legal perspective. Yeah. So but there's some people I think that understand enough to say, well, for what, and sure, I'm a homer and I'm a patriot, but there are some things that are better in America. Like investing for some asset classes are just better in America for certain things. And then there's certain things that are better to invest in Europe. So there's some people that are going to go, yeah, I'd rather it be close to home, but America, because of this law or because of the way they do this, like, it's just better to invest in America. So there's some people that understand that. And I mean, city to city, like certainly different states in America. I mean, red states versus blue states, red cities versus blue cities. There's, for certain strategies, some states and some cities are better. And so there's some people that really understand that. And while they'll go, man, it'd be cool to own something close to home and it would feel safer. Like, I live in California. I know it's not a good place to invest. I'd much rather invest in Texas, where I can't touch it. So yeah, kind of both, but yeah, I think we're on the same page there. Yeah. So how do you go about the raising capital part in this aspect? How have you nurtured your overall capital raising capacity over the last couple of years?
Yeah, we started in 2019 just with, our closest family and friends. And, things went well and, we were telling people what we were doing. So people were seeing it and, word kind of spread. And then the people that were doing it with us told other people. And, the local RIA, the Real Estate Investors Association here in Cincinnati, I think about every city's got one. That's been a great source of capital. I go to those meetings and network with people and, again, they're local and they want, they're real estate investors in Cincinnati. And then, they might be buying single families doing something else, but then they're like, oh yeah, let's throw some money at Lee. He's buying apartments in this area. So that's been a good area. And then it's just kind of grown organically from there. The more people you bring in, the more people that have a good experience with you, the more people they're going to tell. And, we try to tell people too, but our investors tell people. So it's really just grown organically. I kind of wound it down, but I did a podcast for 3.5 years. That didn't really bring in that much, but I've gone on a lot of podcasts like yours, honest, and, people will hear my story and what we're doing and we've gained some investors like that. So there's been a little bit of that, we try to do a little bit of social media. I don't do much, but mostly it's just been kind of organically growing, with our local investors that have a good experience with us and tell other people about it.
Intuitively, I like what you're saying. From a business perspective, what I've seen growing faster is everything that you said, you're doing a little bit of it. So it's very interesting because I'm the kind of guy like you. I like to shake hands. I like to meet people, and I like those trust-based referral relationships. But to some degree, I know this is out there, what you and me are doing, or to some degree. But there's also a different generation, that's very fast. And there's like when I look at social media, the way it's evolving, like I barely wrap my head around one function and there's already 3 more functions, then you wrap your head around one platform and there's 5 more other platforms.
Yep.
So in that sense, I find it really interesting, and it's always almost a bit comforting to meet people like you, where I'm like, a good handshake, a good sit down goes a lot further than all the bells and whistles online.
Yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, it's not as scalable, right? It doesn't scale, at least not that fast. So we try to do both.
Well, I think the scalability in it is that you can seek, and right now I'm solely talking about financial value, that you can seek higher value relationships. At least you can have the same amount of conversations, but you need a different kind of pipeline in terms of the people you're speaking to.
Yeah, good point.
But I think overall, obviously, humans have value as humans, but in the marketplace, people have different values. That's just the nature of society.
Yep.
So where are you in the process of stabilizing this property and turning around some of the units?
We are just getting started. So we just closed 3 weeks ago, I think.
Nice.
And the property, I think it's actually been a month ago now. Time goes fast. There was a lot more vacancy at the property than we, were kind of told, and what the rent roll would have said. And even, sure, we did an inspection. We checked every unit. But just even since then, it of course takes, a couple months to close, and they just quit during that time and drove some people off and let some people go and didn't fill a single unit during that time. So by the time we got it, vacancy was like 2.5 to 3 times more than what we thought. We thought there was like 5 vacancies out of 96. There were more like 13 or 14. And then we lost a couple more people. So we got a lot of units to renovate and turn around, which is good because the rent at the property is in the 600s and it should be in the 900s. Yep. So there's a lot of upside. And so, we got 14 units to experience that upside here pretty quickly. And, that's a big part of the plan. So it's not a bad thing to have that here early on. Of course, we don't want to, operate at that kind of vacancy for any length of time. But here at the beginning, it's fine to kind of give us a nice big boost to our revenue as we, switch out residents paying in the 600s to residents paying, 800 or 900. And so we are all in. We've got a good crew out there. We got a full-time maintenance guy, and so he's helping some too, but mostly he's doing the maintenance requests. We brought a crew in that can turn units faster. So we've got them working on 8 units right now. Give them a few more. Our maintenance guys working on a couple. And so we're hoping to turn, these 14 units, and it's, heading into the winter. It's not the best time to rent. So it may be a little bit slow. especially through the holidays. But we're still working on them right now. So hopefully we can get a few filled, in the next month or so. But then, then from there we should really be able to ramp up, and that's kind of maybe a first phase. Of course, we're doing things like send out lease renewals, and we're raising rent that way, getting people on our lease, implementing some of our strategies and some of our rules that may be a little bit different. But the big job right now is trying to turn a bunch of units and get them filled up as quick as we can.
Yeah. So we were talking market dynamics earlier, and I just had a funny one. So I tried to do a rent renewal on one of the last single family homes that we own in Germany. And, here the law is such that your tenant has to agree to the new lease or the terms. So I cannot just go them and tell them there's new terms because even in a change of ownership, they can always go back to the original lease agreement and can say, no, this is my rent. And then I have to take them to court and try to make a case as to why I want to raise the rent.
Oh, wow.
So it's just wild, the amount of rights renters have in the marketplace like this compared to, for example, in the United States, where, if there is a change of ownership or such, there's a reasonable framework to be like, hey, we have a new lease agreement and there are new terms here. Mm-hmm. Take it or leave it,
Mm-hmm.
But in a place like Germany, which is so extremely liberal, that tenant can tell you, no, I'm sorry, I don't agree to these new terms.
And that's just so wild to me. I mean, it's like, okay, well, if you don't agree, but this is my house. Like, I've been letting you, I'm letting you live here. It just, the whole property rights thing is really wild to me. It just blows my mind that there can be such a thing that somebody else can say, well, you have to let this person live on your property for this amount. So is it really my property? I can't even wrap my mind around that. And I mean, you see some of that in the United States, but to me, it's like, is it my property or not? I don't, I hope we keep strong property rights in America. I think it's a really bad path to get on, to start taking away property rights. And to me, that's what that is. If it's your property, then you should be able to decide who lives there and how much they have to pay you to live there. It's your property. Yeah, that blows my mind.
I mean, it's wild, and see, you have to pay property taxes every year.
Yeah.
And then my tenant can determine, after they signed the first lease, my tenant can determine the rent to some degree. Yeah. If they don't agree. So I can build rent increases into the lease. But if you fail to do that, or if there's any terminology, or if you are going over the market rate based on the lease increases, any of that gets you canceled out of it. Yeah. So it's like mind-boggling how they do this here.
Yeah.
And you really feel like what you just said, that you don't own the property.
Yeah.
And I think what they don't understand is that they're not incentivizing people to keep the money here. And I think one thing they haven't understood is that people like me who have options, international options, are actively taking their family's money out of the country.
Yep.
And we're going to other places.
Yep.
I mean, I've lived in the US for over a decade now, so this is my home, the US. But we're taking my family money with me.
Yeah.
Because we're seeking a legal framework where we feel like there is a sense of ownership, mm-hmm. and we can still provide a service. We're not trying to rip anybody off. Yeah. We're trying to create value for people. But at the same time, we want to know we're operating within a framework where there's rights for owners too.
Yep. Yeah. If you told me I couldn't raise the rent at this property you and I are talking about, then I'm not going to make it nicer. I'm not going to put money into it. So the property's going to deteriorate, for one, but also when I put money into it, I just told you I'm having those contractors out. I got a maintenance guy. I'm spending money. I mean, that's what an economy is. I'm going to invest money and pay people, and then those people are going to take that money and pay taxes on it, and then they're going to buy things, and that's going to give those people. That's what generates an economy. But if you tell me I can't raise rent, then I'm not going to generate any economy. I'm not going to spend money on the property, so it's just going to deteriorate, and people aren't going to build properties. So you're going to have a housing shortage even worse. I mean, the cities in America where the housing shortages are the worst is where it's the most heavy-handed government, where they won't let people make money off of their investment, so people don't invest. And so you have a housing shortage because no one wants to invest in that area. Like you're saying, like you're going to take your money and go somewhere else where you can make a good investment. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me long term, but government doesn't think long term because they have to get elected every 2 years. So it's hard to make long term decisions.
See, I have another one of those. So we wanted to turn one of the other single family homes completely, take it down and build 8 units. And the local government there was so slow to respond or even acknowledge what we wanted to do that we were like, okay, it's okay. We just sold the whole thing.
Yeah.
Again, took the money out of the market and went somewhere else.
Yep. Yep. And you could have generated the economy there by doing that. I mean, how many people you would have had to hire, how much money you would have spent. Those people would have made all that money. It would have been so good for the economy, but nothing.
But this is just something that has been on my mind lately where, you're living in a market where things are possible. And sometimes when I'm in the US, I feel so blessed to be an immigrant in the United States, where I'm like, this is the country where you can actually row your boat in full strike and you feel like you're getting somewhere. Where I feel like in Europe, oftentimes you feel like your boat is just tied down and they tell you to row, 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 Yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine it. Yeah. I feel very blessed. I mean, I'm an immigrant too. I've just been here, we've been here longer, right? We're all immigrants. So I feel very blessed to live in America, especially since I love real estate. It's a great place to do real estate.
Yeah. So outside of your home market, do you see any other markets that you're interested in where you would consider, or do you feel like anyway, Ohio has been a good market for the last couple of decades, historically speaking, there's no need for you to venture anywhere else?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of good markets. I really think, real estate just works when you buy right, you finance right, and then you operate well. And, so of course I focus a lot on buying right. And I think just staying local helps me do that because I know the area really well. And then financing right, we can develop relationships with local lenders and get good financing, which we've been able to do. But the main reason is that I think we can operate better if we stay close to home. And, once we get better at it and we've been doing it longer, I think I'll feel more and more comfortable to branch out. And I would love to. I mean, I would love to diversify into other markets. I think there's better growth markets. Now, I'm happy to be in the Midwest right now where we don't see as high of highs, but we don't see as low of lows. And I think we're headed for a recession. I think we're headed for some difficult times. And typically the Midwest, weathers the storm a little bit better because again, we don't take off. We're not like the appreciation market. So I'm happy to be here as we get into that. Now, if things do correct, the hot markets, the growth markets, the appreciation markets, they'll correct more. And then I think it'll be a really good opportunity that hopefully we're ready by that point. And then maybe we go take advantage of some of those hot, more like growth markets if they correct big time, because they'll come back. Real estate will come back. But yeah, for right now, it just comes down to feeling like we can operate a lot better, Hannes, in our area. So we've just stuck to that. But I think almost any market works. I mean, I'd be scared to invest again in areas where the government is really heavy handed, a place like California that everybody knows about. That would make me nervous, but I know really sophisticated real estate investors and they invest there and kill it. And there's a way to invest in an area where the government won't let anybody build. I mean, the markets that are going to struggle the most over the next year are the ones, some of the ones in Texas and some of the ones in like a Phoenix where, and they'll write it out and be fine. But like, that's where there's been so much development. So yes, the government's favorable, but that leads to a development, which is good. I think for an economy and for people, it's good because they're building because people want stuff. And then that brings prices down, brings rent down and things like that. So you could make an argument that, hey, being in California, they won't let people build as much. So, you've got a moat around your business because, maybe you can't raise rent as fast because the government's heavy handed, but no one can build. So I just say that I kind of got off track, but like, I think you can make it work in any market. So I've just enjoyed staying close to home because Ohio is a pretty good market. And this is where I'm at. So I've just decided to stay local because I think we can operate better if we stay close to home. But man, I think most markets in the United States are good. And I would love to branch out eventually, but I think we'll stay close to home till we feel like we got a little better handle on it. And then we'd like to branch out.
Yeah. You just kind of called something into my mind. So last year I was on a family office meeting in New York City, and there were some families there who owned entire buildings on like Third Avenue and stuff. So those are like buildings that individually cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And I was thinking that New York is a very tough playground, even as apartment owners, the kind of it's a bit like Germany when it comes to that stuff. If you have long-term tenants and the kind of government support they receive, and it's really tough for landlords. But then I was thinking there's families, just like you said, they've understood how to operate within those rules. And it's actually a lot harder for someone else to break into it because it's so specifically.
Yeah.
But if you've understood it, and if you have the right team to navigate it, you're at a massive advantage, and you can operate in a game that's so hard to adapt to. But you also mentioned that in Texas and maybe Florida and some of the southern markets, there is more liberty. You can do things, but therefore market dynamics are more aggressive. And there's actually a conversation I had with Saeed. He's an Airbnb guy from Chicago. And he said he, as a short-term rental guy, prefers to be in a regulated market where he knows that his business is protected because the entry is harder.
Yeah.
So he looked at it as a beneficial because he's like, I'm the guy who's figured it out for himself. It would be a lot harder for me to operate in Florida, where any day somebody can just come in.
Yep.
At least for the majority of cities, not so much all of them anymore. But for the longest time in Florida, anybody could just rent and turn it into an Airbnb. So the short-term rental market there went very boom bust, and it kind of regulates itself as per market demand after that.
Yep. Yeah, I think Grant Cardone says that. I think he says he likes to invest in red states, but blue cities. And he just talks about like he likes to invest in blue cities because they won't let anybody else build. So if he gets something, he knows he won't he doesn't have as much risk for a bunch of competition coming in. So yeah, there's strategies for every market. But like you said, like if you can master it, honestly, the more barriers to entry, sometimes you can take advantage of that. So I think real estate can work anywhere. You just have to, operate well. You have to know what you're doing and you can make it work.
Yeah. You just said something which also brought me. There's so many people that left New York in the last 3-4 years to go to places like Florida or Texas that I think we will actually see some cities turn from red to blue, while the state might remain red, But there will be individual pockets in those places where all of the nuts that left the more liberal space because it turned too liberal, now they're coming to the conservative place, and they're like, wait, this is a bit too conservative. So they're kind of flipping it.
Austin, for sure. Austin's extremely liberal in Texas, right? And there'll probably be more like that.
I was in Austin in April, and I don't know, it didn't look too good on the street there. It's not a place where I would allow my wife, or not allow, but let her walk down the street at a certain time of the day because it just didn't look safe.
Yeah, it's too bad.
And actually, that's another thing. I was talking to a fellow who lives in California now, and he's like, I used to live in Florida. The streets were spotless, highways were perfect. Now I've been in California for a decade here. I feel like the streets are worse than in Russia, he said.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's so funny. He's like, how is this possible? California is richer than other nations.
Yes.
Like this state is richer than other nations.
Yep.
Why is everything so fucked up here?
Oh, man. Yeah. There's a lot of people that say that. A lot of people moving out. I've never, I don't know too much about it, but I'm glad I don't live there.
I find that very interesting. I'm like, okay, how does this work? Like, why does like, for example, California has the resources, financial resources, one would think, given the kind of the kind of GDP they have as a state compared to other nations. But then on such basics, they're failing their citizens to produce quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish governments can do a couple things pretty well. They, I expect the United States government to protect us. We form a militia, form a military. To have courts to protect life, and then to protect property rights. And that's about it. Life, liberty, our Declaration of Independence and our Bill of Rights says life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I mean, to me, I think it was supposed to say life, liberty, and property. And I think the reason that got put out was something to do with having slaves at the time. I think Jefferson wanted it in there, and people said no, because then we can't have African Americans as slaves. And so I would rather go back to life, liberty, and property. I think they could do those three things and nothing else, but they always want to do more because it's a great way to get elected. And the best way to get elected is to tell people, I'm going to give you something for nothing. So I'm going to give you more than we take. And it just sounds so good and it gets people elected. And, it doesn't work. Not in the long term. It doesn't work. The math doesn't work. So you can do it for a while. And then, the people you're fleecing, they leave. And so all you're left with is the people that you promised to give things to, but you don't have the people to take it from. So eventually the math doesn't work. And that's where California is. The people who you were taking the money from to give to the other people that you were getting votes from, they left. So the money's gone. So now all you're left with is the people you told you were going to give something to. So you don't have enough people to take from. You just got a bunch of people you're going to give to, and that math doesn't work. And it happens every time. I think politicians know that. But again, what is it? And not that, to me, Biden and Trump, there's not that much difference when it comes to stuff like that. Like, those guys are going to be gone in 5 years. So, what do they care? So anyway, going on too much of a tangent, but to me, that's what it comes down to. They try to, promise, I'm going to give you something for nothing. I mean, if people think about it, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. There's no free lunch, but it's a great way to get elected, and it works for a while. But then eventually, again, the people that you're fleecing, they're going to go to Texas, where they don't feel like they're getting all their, money taken from. Like you said it well, honest. Like, if you feel like, hey, in California, I'm rowing really hard, but somebody's holding me back, and it's the government taking, they want to take more. I'm going to go somewhere where I feel like my hard work, my rowing, I'm actually getting somewhere. And so those people that are rowing really hard, they leave. And the people who you've promised something to, and you've said, hey, you don't have to row because this guy's rowing, and I'm just going to attach your boat to him and let him pull you. Well, they're the ones that stay because they like the deal they're getting, and the people that don't like the deal leave, and that's what then the math starts not working, and I think that's where California's at.
But I think as a government, you have the responsibility to not ever attract that on a large scale, because it will tip the sentiment within the people who are choosing to work for a better future for themselves, and therefore the state at large, the community at large.
Right.
The community at large benefits by having individuals that are striving for a better future for their individual family, because I feel like fulfillment at large comes from being able to provide not only to your family, but once you're able to provide to your family, you will naturally think about others too.
For sure. Yes.
And
you will.
Some people do that earlier than others. Some really, it takes them a little bit, and they have such a scarcity mindset that they think they need a lot first.
Yeah.
But I think there is a innate human maturity that ends up becoming giving. So I think attracting people that are willing to work and do good and, are willing to thrive and strive, that makes a good community at heart, because you need those people. Yeah. I have an amazing story to share. So we're in the middle of a negotiation. We just did the new due diligence. We're selling one of our last single family homes. Mm-hmm. And the guy who's buying it, when he first came here from Eastern Europe, he worked in one of the houses we built when he came as a painter.
Yeah.
He was painting the house. Now, fast forward, that's 30 years ago. Fast forward 30 years, the guy is buying one house after another.
I love it.
And I love his story, man, because he came to another country. He had nothing to his name. Yep. He started as a painter. He opened his own paint shop, like basically worked in construction on his own terms. And then eventually he understood that he cannot only work hard, but that he has to work smart. He started getting into real estate. And then since then, over the last 10 years, every year he bought at least one property.
Wow.
And he knows the market like no one else.
Yep.
And it's such an amazing and inspiring story.
It is. Immigrants come to America, like they do so. There's so many immigrants in real estate. I mean, I see it all the time. They come And I think a lot of times they're blown away by the opportunity that's here. Like they can't believe what they can do. Anybody can come to America, work really hard, and anybody can go buy investment properties and build incredible wealth. And first generation immigrants do it all the time. And that's what, it bothers me. There's so many Americans that have, been blessed to live in this country for generations, and they don't see that they have so much opportunity. And instead they complain about, whatever. And meanwhile, people are coming over from, Russia, India all the time. And they're like, this is I can't believe the opportunity I have here. And they build incredible wealth for their families because they work really hard. And then they work smart, like you said, Hannes. And they can do it. Anybody can do it. In my opinion, there's some disadvantages, but again, a lot of immigrants come over with nothing. You think they have an advantage? Like whatever this crap that goes on, like, the privileged or whatever. Sure. I grew up very middle class, but compared to somebody coming over from India with nothing, am I privileged? Absolutely. And yet those people all the time beat the socks off of me because they work so hard, they work smart, and they can do it. So they don't come with anything. And yet, I mean, this country affords them the opportunity to build incredible wealth. So obviously the people that are here now, they have that opportunity. I just don't think they see it because, we come from an entitled society, and over there, in some areas in the country, like you're not entitled to anything. They don't get anything. They have to work for everything in a lot of different countries where, there's incredible poverty. So they come here and they crush it. It happens all the time. You see tons of immigrants in real estate.
How do you, and maybe you haven't spent too much thought on that, but how do you think one can, I almost want to say, cure entitlement? Like how do you think somebody can address that? Like, because I feel like entitlement is one of the worst attitudes you can carry around, especially if you come from a place that's just like so rich with opportunity, like the United States.
Yeah. I don't know. My wife and I are raising 2 young kids, and we're trying like crazy to teach them not to be entitled. We do very well. We live in a small house. We have some animals in our backyard. We got, a few pigs, small pigs, some chickens. We make the kids go out and feed them twice a day. We don't need to burn firewood. We burn firewood all winter long. We make the kids work with the firewood, bringing it in and stuff. They can earn 2 pennies per log that they bring in and stack. And I don't know. We try to do stuff like that to show like, I don't care, that we don't need you to do this. Like you don't need to do this. You're going to do it just to learn work ethic, and that, you're not just going to get stuff. You've got to earn it. So I think a lot of times, unfortunately, parents don't teach that. And a lot of times it's out of love. Like they don't want their kids to have to suffer or work hard, but it doesn't work. Like if kids grow up thinking like they don't have to earn stuff, then they're going to feel that. So if you've been taught that, I think it's probably pretty hard, to come back from that. I think, have you heard the name Jocko Willink? He's a former military guy, and he wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. I have not read it. I've heard so many people talk well of it. I want to read it. It just talks about like taking ownership for everything. So whether like, they teach this to you in the military, from what he explains, is like, it doesn't matter if it was your fault or not. Like, especially as a commander, you take responsibility for it. And because that all you can control is your actions. So there's no reason to blame somebody else because it'll get you nowhere. All you can do is take ownership of it. And what did I do or what didn't I do to cause this bad outcome? So what can I do differently? And I just think people have to eventually teach themselves to take that approach to say, you can complain about other people and expect things to be given to you, but you don't have control over anybody else. So you might as well just take ownership over everything and accountability for everything and make it happen yourself, because you're going to be really disappointed if you count on others. It may work sometimes, and you may have a government that decides that you don't have to pay off your student loans or something, but hey, guess what? It's back, and now you have to pay them off. I mean, eventually, so if you were counting on that, sorry, you're going to be much better off counting on yourself, because I think other people are going to, let you down, especially a government or somebody that, doesn't know you, doesn't really care about you. So I don't know how you teach it. I think if people, want to get ahead, it's really the only thing you can count on is your own work ethic. If you're counting on somebody else to give you something, especially something that you didn't earn, I think you're going to be disappointed a lot.
I think you're also victimizing yourself right out the gate, because then you're always dependent.
Yeah. I don't understand that. It's and that's what bothers me about it too, as far as like politics goes, because I feel like we're Like government is trying to convince people that they can't do it on their own. Like that's kind of the whole point. I heard someone say, what you have to do as government is you have to tell people that there's a bad guy out there and that they're a victim of that bad guy. And then this is where the entitlement comes in, is you have to tell them, and you can't overcome that bad guy yourself. You can't do it. You need me. You need government. And that, I think, and again, both sides, I'm not here to tell you, Hannes, that like, this is what Democrats do. Right? Democrats definitely do that. And then Republicans do it too. They just do it differently. They just pick different bad guys. But that's what they do, is they say, here's this bad guy. And whether the bad guy is, rich white guys, or the bad guy is they're going to take your guns, or the bad guy is immigrants, coming in, or the bad guys is, and I'm not making statements on any of these, but they say that's the bad guy, the situation, and you're the victim of that bad guy. And again, this is the key. And this is the worst part of it to me, is like, you can't do anything about it. You can't overcome it. So you need us. And people believe that. And it's sad. It's not true at all. The government, what's that? They say if somebody shows up with a t-shirt on that says, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, turn the other way. Just shut the door, go the other way. I don't think that's a good strategy.
Well, they need to justify the tax burden they put on us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, probably.
This is actually, not to get too deep down in the rabbit hole here, but historically speaking, it's really interesting to see how from a very small percentage of initial taxation, the tax code got more and more complicated. And now it's like this vastly ballooned burden on society, where they're taking for money for things where you're like, who came up with this? Like, what kind of office nerd was sitting there?
It's amazing. Didn't Biden last year or something? He hired like 84,000 more IRS agents or something. It was something.
Well, they did have a major budget for that. Yeah, I don't know the exact number of it, but it was,
man. Yeah, like you said, it's so complicated, it's so bloated. He had to hire 84,000 more IRS agents. It's wild.
Well, it sounded like those are called into office, and they're going after a certain segment of middle class earners. That's what it looks like.
That's what it sounded like. I'm not sure.
Anyway, very wealthy clients are always out of that kind of. It's almost by default. Like the billionaires, they don't do things that outside of the law. They operate within the tax code, and the tax code is an incentive structure to do certain things. And they will play according to that rule book. And I hope people will finally understand that they can also choose to play by that rule book. It's not made for the wealthy, but it made people wealthy, because the IRS is putting out a code that allows you to become wealthy if you have the biggest impact and service to society. So the larger buildings or businesses you build, which serve or give home to more people, they want to reward you by that. And the easiest way to reward somebody is to give them tax credits.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's right there for everybody. I mean, that's what I got from the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. I was like, there's this game, like you can be really mad about the game that billionaires are playing and millionaires, or you can go play that game. Like, go play that game. Go play the cash flow game. The cash flow quadrant, the game that Robert Kiyosaki came up with, like, it's right there. Like you said, Hans, it's in the tax code. It'll tell you, like, start going to some of this stuff, educate yourself. You can play that game, and you can do incredibly well if you play that game well. But or you can just play the game of like, put your head down and hope the government, gives you a lot and just make enough and build a nest egg and then retire when you're 65. You can play that game.
Yeah. I like how we took it full circle. We started with playing the game and we're back to playing the game. One of my final questions that I like to ask is, what do you call a life well lived?
Oh man. Well, I don't want to get too spiritual, but to me, Hannes, I believe there is a God. I believe he created us and he wants a relationship with us. And so for me, that's what it is. Ultimately, I believe we're here to glorify God, and he says we do that by loving him and loving others. So, he really created me I just enjoy doing real estate. I think you got to find that thing that you feel like God created you to do, and do that, because we were created to work and enjoy our work and work as if working for the Lord, not for man. And so in this context, that's what it is for me. But keeping the main thing again for us, first it's glorify God, and that's loving God, loving others. And then my wife is upmost to me, and my kids right behind her. And then who else can we serve? We have a great church community that we do that with. So yeah, I think finding your purpose and living that out, for us, that comes from the Lord. For others, maybe come otherwise. But man, when you feel like you're living your purpose, and for me, feeling like I'm living within the will of God, even the hard times feel like, like a hard practice, right? Like if you're, I grew up playing football, it's like, this ultimate goal is like to be better at football so we can win the game. And so even tough practices kind of feel good. Like, yeah, but we just got better. We're preparing ourselves. And that's kind of, I think you can kind of get through life like that. If you feel like you're on the right track and you're working towards something, even the work, back to your, rowing analogy, honestly, it's like, yeah, man, I'm rowing hard and I'm sweating and this is hard, but like, man, I'm moving, I'm going somewhere. And so if you can get that vision, and feel like you're working toward that, and doing it with others, specifically your family. I don't know, I kind of rambled on, but that's a life well lived to me.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I think also the best players get the toughest challenges.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're in the trenches for a reason, and the harder the challenge, it just means we're there for a reason,
Yeah. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is expected. So I think that's right.
Right. Well, Lee, thank you so much for your time. Where can people connect with you and Threefold Real Estate Investing? Yeah,
Hannes, thanks for having me on. It was a fun. It's a different conversation. It was a lot of fun. We really went down some rabbit holes, but it's important stuff. I mean, you got to know this kind of stuff. It's all important when you're investing in real estate. So you can check me out at Threefold REI. That's spelled out THREE as in the number 3, and then FOLD. And then REI is in realestateinvesting.com. We've got a free ebook there. We've got some videos there, more about us. And then, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Hannes.
Thank you for joining us at The Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.